Welcome to the XY Advisor podcast, where it's our goal to help you become the best financial advisor possible and drive the positive evolution of financial advice. Established in 2017, Goodman's creates sustainable investment solutions for advice professionals and retail customers. Focusing on tools that help customers engage with sustainable and responsible investing, the goal is to play a key role in redirecting capital to environmentally sustainable, socially responsible, and ethical business. The Goodman's Advisor Portal is a discovery, analytics, research, and advice support tool designed to give advisors the confidence to determine their clients' responsible investment needs, analyze portfolio holdings, and access institutional-grade environmental, social, and governance research for over 7,000 global equities, ETFs, and funds. G'day. How's it going? What do you know? Strikerlight Clayton here from XY Advisor. As a part of the ethical podcast series, we have Hope here from Simply Ethical, and Hope is a financial planner who specializes in ethical investments. So it's a real honor to have you on. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for asking me.
Hi, of course. Now, having a business that's called Simply Ethical, I feel has done a very good job of identifying a niche and just going after it, which, you know, if you think of, say, Brett Evans with your expats and Liam Shaw with the SMSF, and I mean, you're the advisor that comes to my mind when I think of ethical investments, because because you're like the one that has put the most sort of time, effort, and focus into it. So talk to me about, like, do you find that there is enough demand out there to run a financial planning business that is very much centered around ethical investments?
Well, there definitely is, because there's many of us around the country that have bigger practices than me, actually, and have been going for about 30 years. So Ethical Investment Advisors, who is my licensee, they've actually got 30-year-old practices, and they've really been leading the way in ethical investment. So I joined them about 4 or 5 years ago and branded separate from them because I wanted my own thing.
Right. Yeah, of course. When I was with Hillross, one of the things that I didn't enjoy is that I needed to have the name Hillross in the business name. So to have your own identity in an environment of people who have set up the structure, I feel like is a really good advantage. So you live sort of North New South Wales. Now, do you think would you argue that people outside of, so I'm originally from the mid-north coast, right? So like around Coffs Harbour. So I'm quite familiar with people with that lifestyle, and I can definitely see that people would be interested in, you know, ethical style of investments from around there. But what would you say to the city slickers around Australia? Would you say that do you think that there's enough interest in this type of investment philosophy that other advisors around Australia should start allocating more and more of their concentration to perhaps this style of investment?
Well, definitely a growing market. And if you look at the Responsible Investment Association Australasia, their benchmark report shows that it's just growing exponentially bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah.
And a lot of our interest comes from clients with existing advisors that aren't able to service that need or even appreciate the value of ethical investment. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So other advisors are coming to you because they've got clients who want ethically focused clients of other advisors. So they might not be. So we get new clients that don't have financial advisors, but also clients that have existing financial advisors that essentially they don't have the know-how of ethical investment. So there's definitely
a push, and with millennials as well. I think millennials are something around 80% more likely to pay more for a product that is sustainable. They're willing to pay more for something that's good quality and sustainable. So, and there's an expectation from millennials that that sustainability and responsible investment is at the core of an investment strategy, even if it's going to make less money. Not that ethical investment does make less money. Yes. There's been lots of studies into it, but these generations coming up have an expectation of responsible investment.
Wow. So your argument is essentially, especially if you're focused on millennials, they're interested to the point where they're willing to accept worse results. The fact that it doesn't equal worse results is just, a clearer picture of why this is important to really start paying attention to. Mm. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. How did you get into advice?
I studied a Bachelor of International Business on the Gold Coast.
Cool.
And it was such a general degree, and I came out and I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? And I think I really wanted a job that was going to help people. So I started working, did my DFP and started working for an MLC advisor.
Yep.
I did that for, quite a few years. And then I went back and studied my Masters of Sustainable Development and Environmental Management.
Yeah, wow.
And I was working from home, just contract paraplanning.
Yep.
While I was doing that. And then that big oil spill happened in the Gulf of Mexico. And I was like, just not okay. Like, we can't keep doing this. And the Murray-Darling had its first big bust up as well. And I was like, I just feel like my parents were always right, those crazy hippies from Byron.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know what you mean, though.
We've got to look after the environment. So I just researched it, and I did a lot of work with actually NGOs like 350.org, and did a lot of divestment work, helping people just divest bank accounts out of the big four banks because the banks chose fossil fuels, and that's just clearly not in our best interest going forward.
Wow.
And then I found ethical investment advisors through that. And just did lots and lots of study and research on my own. Obviously, having that master's really helped.
Yeah.
I did a lot of, it was a lot of business-based sustainability in that. Probably a bit more hands-on rather than just like checking things online and how sustainable. But yeah, but it definitely helped.
I'm kind of impressed to hear, because to me, the whole banking thing is probably the biggest, in my mind, except for the ship that's, actually dragging up the Great Barrier Reef itself. I feel like the funding mechanisms, which are the banks, somehow just escape all sort of responsibility. And then it's interesting for me to hear that you've helped people get out of those banks and to go into different banks, because that to me super makes sense. So if someone's genuinely concerned, then it makes sense not to give business to the banks that are, affording these types of things to happen. Now, of course, they do a million other things as well. But in this particular case, I think that's a pretty clear message to send. And
they're still putting more money into fossil fuels than they are into renewable energy. So it's,
right.
It's still a big issue. And I mean, the Royal Commission was absolutely terrible. On top of like Commonwealth Bank they're making super profits on the back of Australians, they're not paying out, CommInsure are not paying out their insurance premiums. So there's people in Australia struggling because they're not doing the right thing. So it's like, for me, it's very easy and clear.
Yeah. And that's super interesting. Actually, now with full understanding that this is certainly not a recommendation, but are there any banks out there that you feel are more ethical than others?
There's definitely banks that are more ethical, and there's different types, because there's credit unions, so they're generally better.
Yeah. Go Banana Coast.
Profit. Yeah, exactly. But we currently invest in Auswide Bank, and they're doing. They had a bit of trouble a few years ago, but at the moment they're really good. And we also invest in Bendigo.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard. Like, no bank is probably perfect.
Oh, totally.
But, yeah.
I mean that's 100%. But you know, the best of a what you could call a bad bunch, I guess, is probably a good way to go about it. Interesting. So, in your experience, do you find that people are coming to you because you're known for ethical investment, or are you sparking up conversations with people and then introducing the topic, even if it's not front of mind? I guess what my question is like, for the average advisor that's out there, you know, like when I had my financial planning business, I was so focused on, I guess, finding out what the client is doing in their life and what they want to be doing in their life, and then having a look at their financial situation and then sort of coming up with strategies on how to improve that. And I was taking so much in from them and then problem solving and handing it back that I wanted to keep any complexities as far away as possible, right? And this is, I guess, the crux of as I've been going through this series, it's like, you know, put forward a premise. Are the banks, so for example, the banks, are they ethical in their behavior? And it's like, well, okay, no. And then next premise, you know, are you going to talk to the client about it? And so how do you bring the subject up in a way that doesn't distract from the main goal, which is the betterment of your client?
Often a big part of the main goal is to invest ethically. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So that is definitely always a goal in the statement of advice and that we discuss. And it's often, so we have it in our client profile or fact find. It comes, there's a section there that's sort of like a template, and they can tick bits that they want to, a section they want to support and things they want to avoid. And then there's also bits for them to free write. And often people do, they're like, we want to really stay away from the banks, or they'll say, logging is just so important to me. We can't have that in the portfolio. Or they might say that, you know, some clients don't want to invest in alcohol and other clients are happy to invest in alcohol. Or gambling. Well, no one wants to invest in gambling.
Yeah.
So there's like, clients are all a bit different, but they definitely, and then I guess in the statement of advice, it's just part of the investment recommendations.
Yes.
So, you know, you have to give an investment recommendation based on your research and why you choose these investments. So it's just really part of that. And I guess the clients that seek us out, when it is mostly clients that seek us out or seek me out.
Yes.
I do strike up conversations sometimes and people are like, oh my God, I've got to see you. And that does happen, but I'm more sought out. And so there's generally a level of understanding of what's going on in the world and how it can be beneficial to put money into good things.
Yeah.
Coming from those clients.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a really good, as I said before, you know, I feel like you've done a really good job there with, you know, pushing this niche forward. And what would you give as advice, right? Let's say I still had Hillross Silverstone, you know, just dealing with, I guess, finance professionals was kind of my niche. And how would, I'll tell you how during this series, the question that I've think would work well for me, and then you tell me what you think of it, and then if I can improve it all. So my question to introduce the subject was going to be, hey, is there anything in your weekly shopping that you avoid or choose to purchase based on any kind of environmental or ethical reasons? Like, do you avoid caged eggs, for example? That's kind of the question that's popped in my mind, which I feel would be a really good introductory question, rather than say like putting them a textbook in front of them going, this is 101 of ethical investing, you know, and they're like, I just want to make sure that I'm, going to get to Rome in 12 months time. So like, I don't want to distract people, but at the same time, I want to make sure that if I was still giving advice, I would want to make sure that I'm giving them the opening to bring the topic up if it was important to them. Do you have any sort of cool prompting questions? Maybe you're out networking that you can sort of gauge pretty quickly whether they'd be interested or not.
Oh, I'd probably just mention something about sustainability.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
If it was me.
Yep.
Somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I guess, yeah.
So what would be an example of a question or a statement? How would you introduce it?
I guess if I explained what I would do, then I would just say that I'm an ethical investment specialist, and we seek to move money away from things that are unethical or irresponsible, like
Yep.
Fossil fuels, poor labour standards, and gambling, say, and move that money into things that are sustainable and good for the communities in which they operate. So renewable energy, healthcare, and animal rights.
Yep. Okay, cool.
That's details.
No, but that's really cool to understand, because sometimes I think maybe I would be a little bit hesitant to be that way, but perhaps maybe I shouldn't be. So you're suggesting just like saying it outright. Yeah.
The thing is, I think you would find that if you actually ask people, how do you feel about investing into child labour? Like most people are going to say,
good
no,
rates.
that's not okay. Yet a lot of our clothes are still made by companies.
Yeah.
There's child labour involved. So it's like, if you ask those really hard questions, or not hard, but those really, powerful questions somehow, or with most people, but then you do talk to people and they're like, I want to invest in gambling because it makes money, and I'm like, all right, you're not my client.
Aristocrat. Have you seen the stock price? So okay, cool. Well, then on that, because I can see you're very comfortable with just sort of bringing it up and talking about it at face value. We were talking about before this podcast started that there was a pretty strong argument to suggest that due to the FASEA requirements, that this is even a conversation that we sort of kind of need to be having.
Yes. So the FASEA Standard 2, you must act with integrity and in the client's best interest. If you look in the FPA guide on the FASEA Code of Ethics, we just found it as we were all studying for our exams. On page 18, it says you should ask your client if there are any environmental, social, or ethical considerations that are important to them. And I mean, you could ask that, and that may not get a response that says anything, because it might not be like, I guess that's the question you were trying to get at before, is that they might not really understand what ethical or social considerations could be made.
Yeah.
But the banks are probably a good one to talk about because of all the recent stuff in the Royal Commission, and there's people don't like them as much as they used to. While many people are still investing in them, they're not quite happy with how they've been behaving.
Yeah.
So using an example could be powerful.
Okay. What would you say now? I think you're probably well placed to be able to answer this. If we would say, let's say one is not really interested, 5 is really interested, what are the things that people want to avoid at 1 compared to 5? Like because I'm gonna guess sort of moving outside of.
I think fossil fuels is a big one.
Okay.
Because climate change is such a current issue that's going on.
Yeah.
Like tobacco is huge. People don't want to invest in tobacco.
Yeah.
Fossil fuels, including coal seam gas, recycling. People want to support that, and renewable energy is huge. Yeah, they're probably the top ones. I'm just having a look at these lists that we've got.
Yeah, of course.
It really depends on the client and where they've come from and what, yeah. But
how involved they already are in their private life, I guess. I'm guessing. So here, I'll put my concern that I have with ethical investments that I've sort of formulated during this series, and let you tell me why it's invalid. So my concern is I don't want to make people feel like they're bad, right? If they're not already considering this. So if I put myself in the client's position and then I turn up, well, let's not even say it's a financial planner. Let's say it's a physiotherapist, or like it doesn't matter who you're in front of. But if I was asked the question, do you support child labor? Like if I was genuinely asked that question, I'd be like, of course not, right? But then I feel like that's sort of a leading question. And then what I would think is whatever the conclusion was that you got me to agree to after that question, I feel like probably doesn't represent my exact view. It probably is an extreme view for me, or an extreme outcome for me, considering the question that was asked. So like,
we wouldn't just ask one question though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is an extreme thing, but it's also a reality.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard for advisors to really delve into the realities. And I was arguing with my senior advisors about investing in like BHP before I started my practice. I was like, this is just ridiculous. There's no sustainability here. They're not considering the communities in which they operate. There's there's finite resources on the planet. Like we can see that with the Murray-Darling. Like it's like there's no water there. Like what's going to happen now? Like that's just going to keep happening to our ecosystems. And so that's like there's a range of questions, and it's, I guess for the client, no one's bad. The government's not leading this, are they? So it's kind of up to business to make the changes, which is unfortunate.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it would be more of a wholesome view rather than just like a one issue thing. And clients aren't bad. We've not taught to think about our super in schools. People have no idea what they're invested in. Is it their fault? Well, kind of is, kind of isn't, because it's like this whole industry has been set up by legislation that hasn't really been, I guess, executed very well. With all the fee problems that have happened in the past, all this stuff where people just blindly let it go. And I think, getting people in touch with their super, and, we had this discussion with Hester at one of the Responsible Investment Association conferences, and he goes, we just can't get people engaged with their super. I'm like, what are you talking to them about? Are you talking to them about their fees and returns? Because people don't understand that. Talk to them about child labour and about fossil fuels and about how to make the world a better place. And people can feel that, they can understand that, and they can actually engage with that. Yeah. So I think this is actually a good tool and a good way to get people engaged with their super.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So while I guess I'm a little bit concerned about insulting someone's sensibilities, because I don't want to put a question in front of them that says that it implicitly, if they don't agree to me, then they're putting their hand up to say that they're a bad person. Like I want to kind of avoid that. But what you're saying is there's probably, for every one of them, and there would be those people, but you're saying as far as a tool for getting people activated from apathy to taking action, which is, let's face it, as a financial planner, kind of the job description, right? So what you're saying is it's worth risking potentially making someone feel slightly uncomfortable for 1 second, but the amount of people that you could potentially attract and get a positive experience from sort of supersedes that. And I guess that's a really good point. So I think it makes a lot of sense to me that you're kind of like, what advisors should be doing is perhaps approaching this subject early in the piece, maybe even before there's a face-to-face meeting, so that the frame is already set for that to be a part of the conversation. So whether that they agree with it or not, at least they've got some comprehension, so that when the question is asked or the topic is introduced, that it's not completely out of the blue and you're avoiding this concept of awkwardness. I really, really like that idea. I've actually got an advisor mate who before the client comes in for the initial meeting, they have a private video on YouTube. And in that private video, it's an introduction to everything that's going to get spoken about. And he even mentions what the fees are going to be. So he's avoiding the awkwardness of the fee discussion before they come in. And I guess this is another topic. So perhaps as a part of his onboarding, it's like, you could say, you know, how much do you know about your super? How much do you care about your super? These are the fees, these are returns. Do you even know where it's invested? Do you care about sustainability of the planet? Do you care about ethical investment? And maybe you can approach that or broach that subject via written communication or whatever your collateral is, so that when the conversation comes, there's you're probably going to attract more people because you're activating more people, and B, that you're avoiding the potential awkwardness of the issue.
I guess it's for other advisors it would be very different, because for me this is what I do. Like, I don't do mainstream advice. So for a client, I will refer them on. But yeah, definitely. And I think it's also probably asking just a a more gentle question rather than like child labour, like more like a sustainability question. And it's not necessarily, I mean, most people that don't care that they don't care. It's the people that care about caring, you know, because they don't think there's anything to care about. So they'll be like, oh, that's just a load of crap, you know, like.
Yeah. That's interesting. So let's thanks for sort of that insight, because that's kind of solved a problem that I was having when I thought about the subject. Let's dive into a little bit about specifically what you're doing. So you say you don't particularly do mainstream advice, and that other advisors are sending you their clients specifically for ethical advice.
Well, no, they're not. I'm stealing them. No.
Oh, right.
No, I'm not. No, it's because a lot of clients that come, they're like, oh, I really like my advisor, from everything else, but they can't help me invest ethically and where my values lie.
Yeah. And
so I did try and think about working with one advisor, but it just, obviously our ideas on investment is so different. We just decided I don't think it would work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So realistically, what you're saying is, for the people that ethically investing is super important, they're coming to you because it is such a super important topic. And I guess for the message for everyone is, if you can build a business based on the fact that this is such an important topic for a few people, then without a doubt, it's going to be somewhat relatively important for probably many, many more people.
Definitely. If the question's asked, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So you're a part of a licensee that does specifically this type of work. How many of you are there around Australia?
So in our license, we've got me and Byron. There's 3 advisors in Brisbane, Tasmania and Perth.
Yep.
There's also another group that's joined from Sydney, I think, but we're also part of the Ethical Advisors Co-op. So that's a group of, I don't know, maybe I think there's more than 20 practices now.
Yeah, right.
of ethical advisors around the country. And so I think I mentioned that we've got that rating tool on the website as well for funds, and on the Ethical Advisors Co-op website, where anyone can go in and just look at how we've rated the funds. We've given them like 4 out of 5 green leaves. Basically just on their ethics. It's got nothing to do with returns or fees.
Yep.
So there's funds, super funds, and ETFs on there.
So you guys have your own independent rating.
Yeah.
Wow. And you mentioned that you were on the investment committee before, right?
Well, for that,
Okay.
The Ethical Advisors Co-op is the cooperative of the advisors from all the practices.
Yep.
But there's also my licensee, Ethical Investment Advisors. Too many ethicals in all these names. I know. Have just set up a new funds management company.
Yep.
And they've developed some portfolios. So there's one bond or conservative portfolio, and one high risk or growth portfolio, which is Australian and international shares and property. I can't remember property in there. And so they're going to be live on Hub24 next month, I believe.
That's cool.
For advisors to use. And essentially,
so what do they type in if they're looking for it?
I was just looking. I'm not sure what they've called them, because
Okay.
I'm not really. I'm sort of part of it, but not.
Sure. Well, what we might do is
they're Ethical Advisors Funds Management. They're called
Ethical Advisors Funds Manager. Okay, cool.
And they'll be SMAs basically of managed funds, and ETFs,
Yep.
and we are getting fee discounts on them as well, on the funds that go in once we have enough funds under management.
Awesome.
But they're all LonSec approved investments as well.
Cool. So potentially, if there's advisors out there who get a client that's super interested in ethical investments, then there are easy, almost advisor selected portfolios or SMAs that they can use on Hub24.
Yeah, and so they just need to use the 2 portfolios together, and they can just make the asset allocation however they want.
Yeah.
And so these are our what we believe are best in class for certain reasons. So there's going to be flyers and information that's just all going to get what is it called, done with the what are they called? Who does all that? Makes things pretty. Graphic designer.
Oh, right.
The graphic designers we've got all the information. They're just putting those together now.
Cool.
Ready to be released next month, I believe.
That's awesome. Do you have an idea of what the management expense ratio would be roundabout?
No. From us, I don't know. Actually, I'll have a look. I've got the flyer open here.
Yeah.
Because we've actually got our own ones that are a little bit different. Oh, here we go.
Right.
The portfolio fee is 0.33%, I believe, for the growth portfolio.
Yeah, right. That's what total MER?
No, that's not the total MER. That would be their fee.
Right.
And then there'll be a fee of estimated cost of unload investments is 0.79.
Okay, so collectively you're looking about 1.1. Okay.
Yeah, which is not too bad for growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that even exists, the fact that advisors around Australia are building ethical SMAs to be held on, popular platforms just tells me that this thing is I don't want to use the term take off, because I feel like it's been around for ages and it's slowly been getting momentum for a long time. But it definitely, there's a sense that things are going mainstream. I mean, the fact that you can build an entire business around the speciality of this is really cool and shows, I guess, the growth within broader society. Here's a question. If you could get every advisor to consider, one thing when it came to investing their clients' money, what would that be?
Oh. Like from an ethical investment standpoint?
Yeah, of course.
Consider the children. No.
Would someone think of the children?
I think it's really hard to. It's hard. I understand it's difficult for advisors that don't have, I guess, the expertise or understanding in ethical investment, and even in sustainability, to really put the two and two together.
Sure.
So that's a hard question to answer, but I guess it's like, if you listen to the science, this is the science. Like, we are close to ecological collapse in Australia. Like, the drought is unprecedented. And so I guess, we can make a really big difference by investing this way. We can have huge impacts, and we don't need to forego returns to make a difference and to invest responsibly and ethically and for the future and for long-term outcomes for all Australians, not just, for clients.
Yeah.
Though they are the first thing to think about.
Yes.
And considering that, I think the Australian Financial Review just had an article today saying that unless we listen to the Paris Accords for climate change, if we listen to the Paris Accords for climate change, we're still going to lose 0.25 basis points over the long term because of climate change. And if we don't listen, which we're not at the moment, it could go up to almost 80 basis points.
Yeah, right.
So I guess it's just consider the reality of the situation, and just try. And there's a lot of good resources with the Responsible Investment Association. They've got a really good page that just explains the ethical investment industry, because there's a lot of different types of ways to invest ethically. And when we do more at the ethical end of things.
Yep.
But yeah.
Awesome. No. Like that's really important. My understanding is of the Paris Accord, which I had to check out because I was wondering why it didn't go through. And my understanding is that the biggest polluters in the world somehow were scoped out of the Paris Accord. So then it becomes, it's such a difficult conversation, I think, when it comes to sustainability, because if you said to me we should have less plastics, I'm like, yeah, well, that's easy,
Yeah.
But then if someone goes, well, does, say, the slums in India deserve to live a better life, and get air conditioning, for example? It's harder for me to agree to that, because then someone's life, I guess, even if they're on the other side of the world, we're sort of saying, well, if you were to live a life like us, then the world would be even more polluted. So I guess that's where the renewable power conversation comes along, and you go, well, is it easy for them? Is it this? Yeah. Did you ever play video games where you have civilization? You have to go through the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, and I always go, it would be awesome if, those huge parts of the world could just skip the whole industrial age and go to the technological age.
I think they will.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, that saves a lot of the problems. That gives us the cake and eat it too, right?
We're invested in the sustainability revolution at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, because hey, have you followed any of the stuff that's come out of Solar City with Elon Musk? Because he created these roofs which were made of solar panels with tiles, and I'm thinking, this is awesome. But then I haven't really seen anything for I think about 3 or 4 years.
I think people were buying them in Australia. I did see something about it.
Yeah. Okay. To me, I feel like if there is a commercial way to make this happen, that guy will figure it out.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a, we can't, if you want to continue to operate in communities, there actually needs to be people there to buy the products.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, no, I totally get that argument. Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much, Hope. I've spoken to a bunch of specialists, but you're the first advisor that I get to speak to about this. And it's been super interesting speaking to you about this and like finding out that it's such a core part of your offering and that there's enough people who are that interested in getting advice from you simply because you're 100% focused on that. And hopefully we can go sort of some way to playing a role in more advisors considering even at a lower priority. But yeah, thank you.
It's actually Ethical Investment Week next month.
Is it?
Yes. So if our advisors are interested, they can go. There's around the country. There's events being held.
Well, to be clear, probably this podcast will come out after. So what?
That's fine.
That's really cool to hear about. What is it called and what's happening?
It's Ethical Investment Week. I'm just looking at the website now because, well, I had this little baby, so I'm like not really up with. Well, it's run by the co-op, the Ethical Advisors Co-op, and it's every year.
Oh, cool.
I sort of just do my business and my baby at the moment.
Yeah, of course.
When is it? Oh, I've gone to the wrong link. But you can have a look if you just search Ethical Investment Week. It should come up. Oh, here it is. And so the 5th to the 11th of October. And so there's lots of events on there that people can go to. And I think they're watching that. A lot of people are watching the movie 2040. If you've heard of that.
No, I haven't.
Which is really, I mean, I haven't actually seen it either because I've got a baby.
Business and baby, yeah.
But I think it's very positive and it just talks about how we've already got all the solutions to everyone having a good life on the planet.
Yeah.
And it is possible. So it's like, just pushing that. And I guess that's somewhere for advisors to start with as well, is that it is really scary and hard when you think about it, but just like, let's just ignore that we've got the problem because we've got the problem. Let's just try and fix it.
Yeah.
Is a good attitude to take, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much for coming on. If there's any advisors that want to find out more about you or the licensee or your business, or if anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best place to go?
You can email me
at
hope@simplyethical.com.au.
Awesome.
I think my details are on my website and the Ethical Advisors website as well.
Excellent. Again, thank you so much for coming on, sharing, and I really appreciate your time.
That's all right. Thanks for having me.